permission, Madam Chair? And then I'm going to hand it
Please
to
do.
the clerk and ask if we can get a written copy so people know what the motion is. And I'll also ask County Council and staff if there's anything that I've either left out or have inartfully proposed. I move we adopt a resolution amending the Santa Clara County General Plan relating to the Stanford University Community Plan and amend related provisions of the Santa Clara County General Plan. Want to affirm, the motion affirms the addition of the new policy in Chapter 4, circulation, to facilitate the identification of traffic concerns and preferred mitigation approaches. Upon receipt and initial processing of any application for development on a housing opportunity site within the Stanford Community Plan, the county shall mail notices to all property owners of any parcel located within 1,000 feet, not 300, because I think if we're talking about traffic moves and 300 feet's not enough, of the boundaries of the subject property. The motion also affirms the removal of metrics around financial information and staffing levels from the municipal services reporting table. My understanding is this is an issue where the university had expressed some concerns. Staff thought the concerns were legitimate, and so I am acknowledging that we would address those concerns, largely around privacy as I understand it. Fourth part is to add new language to implementation measure SCP HI3. All required housing, both affordable and market rate, is required to be located on campus or on contiguous original Stanford land grants Stanford lands. A minimum of, I'm going to say 75% of the housing shall be on campus, and up to 25% may be off campus on original land grant Stanford lands in Palo Alto, contiguous to the community plan area. And then the clarification that staff referenced earlier, which I know is important to some of the folks in adjacent communities, on that off-campus land in the city of Palo Alto, Stanford may offer any housing unit required by the SCP that is not utilized by Stanford affiliates to the general public. I believe that's what you were looking for. Then direct the Department of Planning and Development to recommend policy language applicable to the unincorporated area on light pollution with consideration of dark sky policies and bird-safe design guidelines that are scaled appropriately to development intensity by end of calendar year 2024. Madam Chair, I know the bird-safe design guidelines was referenced more than 3 years ago in the Planning Commission conversations. It's time to figure that one out. No direction here as to what they should be, but just let's get her done, whatever it is, and bring it back to our board sometime before the end of next year. Direct the Department of Planning and Development and County Council to review the county's current tree preservation and removal ordinance and recommend to the Board of Supervisors additional amendments, if any, which may be appropriate related to the protection of ancient oak trees that are 150 years or older, again by the end of calendar year 2024. An amendment to the 70-30 split on campus versus university lands in Palo Alto contiguous campus shall be 75-25. Request, because that's what we can do given the independent nature of the independently elected sheriff, request the sheriff's office to report back no later than April 30th, 2024 with a revised memorandum of understanding between the county and Stanford University governing the performance of law enforcement duties on Stanford's campus that responds to the recommendation of the OIR Group's 2022 Stanford University Department of Public Safety Evaluation of Policing Practices and Recommendations on the Provision of Police Services for the County of Santa Clara study, as well as a timeline and process to incorporate any remaining recommendations in the study. And colleagues, if you wonder what on earth I'm talking about, in the course of this conversation, we discerned that OIR Group, pursuant to our request, did in fact come up with some recommendations. They are still in draft form as I understand it. They're still being worked through. To the Sheriff's Department's credit, they have already begun, as I understand it, to implement some of these recommendations, but it's time to finalize the report, bring it to all of us here, and make sure that we know what is and isn't happening and that we're making progress. Also, next item is to direct County Council in collaboration with the Sheriff's Office to report back at the first meeting in 2024 with information relating to how the California Public Records Act applies to Stanford's Department of Public Safety. And this is just a transparency issue that we've wrestled with before, to the extent that pursuant to the 1985 tri-party agreement, there is an expectation of municipal services being provided by the university, and in this instance we're talking about law enforcement, then there are just some very legitimate legal questions about, okay, so does that mean that the California Public Records Act does or does not apply to the university's public safety department, which on the one hand is clearly operating with police powers granted by our sheriff. On the other hand, it's the university's staff. So question there and a request for some information. And finally, and I think this was obvious today, and this is why I wanted to hold off on finalizing the motion, there are a few issues that I think need to be revisited when appropriate. When the county receives a new GUP application from the university or enters in discussions about the tri-party agreement, or at such other time as may be appropriate, direct staff to consider, and there's quite a bit of flexibility there about when and through what conversational vehicle, but consider schools and payment payment in lieu of taxes, the manner by which low income and very low income, by which very low income and extremely low income, so VLI and ELI housing may be built, and direct that future housing nexus linkage policy studies examine the economic service circumstances of graduate students and postdocs. Also, and forgive my handwriting, everybody, continued consideration of childcare needs for graduate students and postdocs and support for families with school-aged children. And I've just added lead paint issues just because I think, as we've discussed in other forums, this is an area that always needs to be pursued vigorously.
Second.
Thank you. I knew if I took a breath.
Motion by Chavez, second, by Simitian, second by Chavez. I neglected